Hey everybody, so a few videos ago, 3, 4, I don't know, a while ago, months ago, I did a review of the Marvel Omnibus Savage Sword of Conan collected thing, Volume 1. Really recommend it. I only had a couple problems with it, and they're things that I think most people wouldn't care about. For instance, I think it's too big. I just think it's too big. It's unwieldy. I'd like it to be broken down into, say, 3 books instead of one gigantic one for $150. Just break it down into 3 that are $50 and are more pleasurable to read. This whole bigger is better thing, usually, but not always. Anyhow, Savage Sword of Conan, I gave it the thumbs up. So the next thing is obviously going to be, what about Conan the Barbarian, the old school 70s stuff. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the Marvel Omnibus reprints of the old 1970s stuff with Barry Windsor-Smith. I picked that up here. So we've got this. We've got the Marvel Conan the Barbarian reprinting the first 20-some issues of Conan the Barbarian starting in 1970. We're going to look at this, and we're going to compare it to the original. Here I've got the original first issue of Conan the Barbarian, the real deal. However, I will not be cracking this open because this is all tucked away for safekeeping. But we're going to compare the reprinting. This is the thing. This is the big thing with all this stuff, is that you're looking at reprints of stuff from the 70s, which gets pretty funky. There's some weird things that can happen. Because for as much as this is great, it's horribly flawed. And when you look past the nostalgia and you look at it on a material level, when you actually look at the reality of the stuff, it's printed on awful paper. It's full of smudges. It doesn't hold up very well. It's just a real shame because you've got this beautiful art, but you're still dealing with the problems of that printing method and the materials of the printing back then. And I'm not saying that it doesn't look great. I mean, that cover looks amazing. To this day, it looks great. It's incredible. But the interior pages, when they're on this really cheap newsprint, it's kind of a shame, and it doesn't really look that great. Although, that doesn't mean that when you reprint something, for instance, we're also going to look at this. We're going to look at the Dark Horse reprints of this same material. They've taken the inks, they've recolored them and modernized them, they've photoshopped them to death, and I think this looks absolutely terrible, and you'll see what I mean. I'm probably coming from it through the goggles of 50% nostalgia, half of it's that, and I have to admit that. So I've got a soft spot for that old style, over-the-top kind of coloring, but a newer audience, I don't know if they do. They might actually like the contemporary coloring that you see in here more. I don't. I don't think it's as authentic to the actual material, and I don't think it suits the art as well either. We'll go through some, we'll just do some side-by-sides, and you can see for yourself what the difference is. Also, at some point, not in this video, but I've been reading this. I've been reading this Peter Pan by Regis Loisel. He's another crazy French guy, and there's really something in the water. It's weird. It's weird. It's French weird, and you know what I mean. Some of you know what I mean when I say it's French weird. French weird. It's odd, but I kind of love it. I really like the art. It's really cool. I'm not a fan of this. Speaking of reprinting, so much work has gone into making this book. And so little care has gone into this, the quality of this. I'm not impressed with the publisher who printed this. It's just not very good. Anyhow, so Conan the Barbarian, the first omnibus, what's it like? Well, it's Barry Windsor-Smith. I don't think I can even tell if I like Barry Windsor-Smith or not. I'm not sure. I don't even know. When I look at it now, I see the art as an interesting. I'm looking at the art more to see his evolution and to see him working out issues. As weird as that sounds, and that's not a slant against him. at all. It's no disrespect to him as an artist, because he's done some unbelievable, amazing stuff. However, at that time when he was doing this, he was just a kid, and you can see him working out issues. As an artist myself, you got to do that. You know, you draw a lot of stinkers, and we have to admit, objectively, when it comes to old Barry Smith art, there's a lot of stinkers, but he makes up for it with sheer energy, and there's a certain sort of John Kirby swagger in there, and energy factor, which is really great. So almost like the overconfidence and the over exuberance of the energy makes up for the fact that once in a while you get some funk, you know, you get some funky anatomy going on, but you can almost look past it, because you can just kind of lose yourself in the energy of it. So I'm a fan. Of course, my favorite Conan artist is obviously going to be John Buscema. I shouldn't say obviously, but he's up there. He's probably my favorite Conan artist for sure. One of my favorite artists, period, is John Buscema. Buscema, who knows, whichever. Anyway, the great thing about this Conan is Roy Thomas as well. Roy Thomas is amazing. He's so solid, constantly just good material. Story after story is a lot of fun. So even if you are not into the art, the stories themselves are so much fun. They're really good swashbuckling adventure. They pay such good tribute to the original Robert Howard material. It's really fantastic. I mean, I like the Robert E. Howard stuff, like the actual books. I really enjoy that. And so I mean, it's all these different things seen through different lenses and different takes. You know, the movies are one thing, the comics are one thing, the books are one thing. You know, so you kind of have to take it for what it is. But either way, let's go and let's dig into Conan the Barbarian, Marvel Omnibus 1, and let's compare it to the other attempts at reprints. One of the things I love about the Marvel Omnibus here is all of the extra material. There's a huge introduction by Roy Thomas, massive introduction, tons of kind of behind the scenes sort of stuff that we've never seen before, something that you don't get, for instance, in the Dark Horse material. In this here, you've got the original letters pages. How cool is that? It is so cool to see what the fans were thinking, what they were thinking, how people were, what the reception was like for this material at the time. It's a really amazing time capsule into pop culture. Towards the back here, look at all of this extra material. You've got tons of stuff. You've got original pages, original sketches, some essays from people who have worked on the material, some thoughts on it, some thoughts on adapting it for comics, some of the history. Fantastic. And here we've got some of the black and white Frost Giant's daughter. This stuff here you will see in the Savage Sword omnibus if you pick that up. It's an all-around, it's an excellent book. I highly recommend this. I'm very happy with it as a whole. Now, the easiest way to compare all of these is just to go straight to the front page. Just the first page. Here you've got the covers, the original, and then the reprinted cover of the Marvel Omnibus. Unfortunately, in the Dark Horse edition, there is no reprinting of the covers, which is very odd. Maybe it's a rights issue. Now, the easiest way to compare the coloring of each of these editions is just to pick a page and look at each one individually. So we'll look at the original 1970 straight out of the gate. This is the first page of the actual original comic. Here's a scan of the first issue of Conan. And you can see here, you can see what I'm talking about. You know, there's some funk going on. It's dirty. It's really rough, but at the same time, I get it. I love that organic feel. I love how you can just sort of, you can smell this thing, you know? I love that. I love the feel of this. However, it is pretty smudgy. It's pretty dirty. It's pretty flawed. When you look at the coloring here, there's gaps that are kind of missing, that are clear mistakes. On the front page, you can see sort of clear errors. You know, that's not intentional. That's a flat out error on the first page. I mean, at the time, they didn't know if this was going to be a success or not. So, hey, you know, they're just cranking stuff out. But you can see how it's a little bit sloppy. You know, it's part of the charm, but it's also, it's a little rough. It's a little rough. Now, when you go to the Dark Horse edition, you can see that they've completely modernized the coloring. You can see that they've added a lot of kind of airbrushing, photoshopping type stuff. And now if you're looking at this as somebody who is completely unfamiliar with the material, you might actually prefer this. And I wouldn't blame you for preferring this type of coloring. Because if you're sort of a younger person who didn't grow up with sort of the old school stuff, then I could totally understand, because I did say that it's half nostalgia why I like this older stuff. But I do understand if you like the newer material better, just because it is a bit more contemporary. Although for me personally, beyond the nostalgia, it doesn't have the same energy that the older stuff does. And I think part of it is the art. The fact that the art is so wonky in a way, having over-the-top color fits over-the-top art better, in my opinion, because the art is a little out there. It's a little weird. It gets a little funky. It gets a little strange. I don't want to say flawed, but it gets a little whacked out sometimes. It actually fits the art better when it has coloring that's the same way. The coloring is whacked out as well, so it's complementary to it. Now, with the Dark Horse, you can see that they've added a lot of Photoshop-y kind of effects and lens flares. And now let's look at the Conan omnibus here, and let's compare it to the original printing in 1970. You can see that they've stayed way more faithful to the original coloring, for better or worse. They've gone with the way it was originally. They've tightened it up, though. You can see that they haven't re-lettered things like they did in the Dark Horse. They've kept the original lettering. They haven't added any unnecessary embellishment. They've kept it authentic to the original, and they've re-presented it to the audience the way that it was kind of originally intended, for better or worse. I was extremely reluctant to pick this up. I was really worried about the coloring, and I tried to do a lot of research, and I couldn't really find any good comparisons. So I eventually bit the bullet and picked it up, and I have to say that I am quite happy with it. If I got to nitpick, if I got to be picky, one thing that I would say is I think it's a little glossy. It's a little too glossy for me. I think if they tone that down, if they move to a semi-gloss or even a matte paper, I think it might have worked a little bit better. I do like the weight of this paper. I really like the weight of it, but I just don't think that the gloss is necessary. I think it actually makes the oversaturation a little too oversaturated, and it already is possibly a little too oversaturated. These colors are a little too punchy, and you might be okay with that, but I think in a way, if they toned it down a little bit, and they don't need to add, say, the yellowing of the paper and do some kind of fake paper effect or anything like that. That would look nice, that would look good, but that actually might feel cheap in a way. So doing what they did, like recoloring it digitally and representing it like this is fine. I think it's good. I think it works. I think this is the best we're going to get. It is a monstrous feat just to gather all this stuff together. So there's probably a lot of reasons why they can't do X, Y, or Z. So regardless, I'm quite happy with this. I would recommend it. When I was younger, I was really into Conan the Barbarian, because that's kind of what I had access to. But now as an adult, it's all, Savage Sword. I'm much more into the Savage Sword. I think it's because it's for a bit more of a mature audience, I guess you could say. But it's really great material. I love Conan. I think it's really great. Dark Horse has done some modern stuff that is really cool. There's some really great Conan artists right now that I really like. Conan's one of those fantasy books where if I could draw anything, it would be Conan. But it's also one of these things where I would be so intimidated by it. It's kind of like Frankenstein. I would love to draw Frankenstein. However, Bernie Wrightson, man. Like Bernie Wrightson did Frankenstein. So you can't do it. It's just how do you ever draw Frankenstein knowing that there's the Bernie Wrightson book out there? Yeah, like it's just you can't, you know. And that's how I sort of feel about Conan. How can you do Conan when John Buscema did it? Like how can you ever play Conan in a movie knowing that Schwarzenegger did it? Like the Schwarzenegger Conan is Conan, and that's the thing. So as much as you love it, you're always going to sort of be in the shadow. So that's my feeling on drawing Conan. So yeah, even though I love the sword and sandals type stuff, it's the Age of Iker project that I'm working on, which you can check out smiletitans.com/patronoid, capital P. I'll put the link below. You can check it out. I love this sort of fantasy stuff. That's my comic anthology. There's a free issue. You can check it out below. It's very cool. Go do it. And like and subscribe to help out the algorithm. YouTube is, I think, tanking my channel. So it seems like it's just nobody. I don't even get my own video recommendations. I'm subscribed to myself with a different account, and I don't even see my own videos. I don't get it. So it's kind of weird. Anyhow, that's it for that. I would absolutely recommend this if you're a Conan fan. They did a good job. This is, I think, the best it's ever been since it was originally printed back in the 70s. This is the best thing. Ignore these. I've got a stack of them. They're basically garbage. This is where it's at, even though they're a little big and unwieldy. This is the deal. I'm kind of really looking forward to getting the next ones because John Buscema is going to kick in around issue, 24, 25? And then, oh my God, it gets so good. No disrespect to Barry Windsor-Smith, but you know, it's the John Buscema stuff. And holy man, I can't believe how much Conan that guy drew. It's just insane. Like 100 and some issues straight of Conan. God, and it's so good. It's so good. Look at that. Look at that. Just think. that's goosebumps from thinking about Conan. Anyway, God, I'm old, but internally I'm like 9 years old. So you guys let me know in the comment section below. Is it new Marvel omnibus? Is it contemporary colored Dark Horse? Or is it old school, ratty, smelly 1970s newsprint? You tell me what's what in the comment section below. So thank you very much for coming by. I really, really, really appreciate you guys who have subscribed, who are giving the thumbs up on the channel and all that. It really helps out a lot. Thanks for spending some time with me. Hugely appreciated. And a massive, massive, massive thank you to all of the Patreons and subscribe stars who are subscribed, who get the Patronoid magazine, my comic anthology magazine. There's tons of cool stuff in there. Check it out again, link below. So a big thank you to all of those guys and gals who are helping out with that. Big, huge thank you. So thanks for coming by, and yeah, we'll see you in the next one. So cheers. By the way, speaking of reprints and newsprints and, you know, reprinting art that was originally published or printed on just the cheapest newspapery material you can imagine and reprinting that in the modern day, the best ones that I've seen, or some of the best, obviously I haven't seen everything, but from what I can see, from what I've read, the Prince Valiant reprints by Fantagraphics are hands down, above and beyond, some of the best examples of that. It's absolutely stunning. I have some Prince Valiant newspaper strips, like original strips from the 40s, and they still look great. This is the thing, they still look really, really, really good, but you can imagine that in a lot of cases there's smudging, there's fading, all this kind of stuff, plus you're dealing with the yellowing of the paper itself. So reprinting that is really, really tricky, and the Fantagraphics gets it bang on. Anyhow, eventually I'm gonna go through those and show you exactly what I mean, and just how amazing they are and how good Prince Valiant is. Yeah, Hal Foster's amazing. Speaking of some of my other favorite artists, Hal Foster's incredible.